right, welcome to Ignite session 18. You're almost at the end. I think there's 20 of them, right?
We are done on March 19th, so we're getting close.
Getting close, all right. So this is session 18 that I'm gonna facilitate today. This is on negotiating offers, is this section, and we're gonna walk through this today, walk and talk, and have a chat about it. This is just what we talked about, being 18 out of 20. Okay, so you're almost at the end. We're in the transaction phase of Ignite and negotiating offers. I help agents negotiate things every day. Usually not the initial stuff, more like the repairs and cost credits and everything like that. So I decided I would step up and offer to facilitate this. Because we're a fairly small group, if you have any questions, please just raise your hand or interrupt or something, and we'll stop and we'll briefly answer the question. Or I will. If it's too long, we'll wait until the end. But if you have any questions along the way, feel free to step in. All right, today's agenda, which we won't stray from too far. I'm just kidding. We're going to talk about the 3 Ps of negotiation. What is it? Negotiating tips and a daily success system for what works. And we'll recap and we'll have some ahas. Sound good? All right. Negotiating. Lee Steinberg says, negotiating is not something to be avoided or feared. It is an everyday part of life. That could not be truer. You negotiate for everything, whether you're aware of it or not. That is so true. And what is negotiation? So let's start back with the Y4C2TES, our important steps that are part of our part of the Keller Williams fabric. You've probably heard these: win-win or no deal, integrity, do the right thing, customers always come first, commitment in all things, communication, seek first to understand, creativity, ideas before results, teamwork, getting together, everyone achieves more, trust starts with honesty, equity, opportunities for all, and success results through people. I don't have that memorized. I'm sure you don't either, but it's there, and at least you have some familiarity with it when we see it. So that's our Y4C2TES, and they added the E and the S, and I'm very happy about the fact that they added the E and the S more recently than the others. Path of negotiation. 2 options after an offer is presented. The easy one: an offer is submitted, it's accepted, and then you work toward closing. Okay, option 2, an offer is submitted, it is then rejected or countered, and you negotiate, and then it's accepted or rejected, and it closes. It could also terminate. Option 2, way more common than option 1. I mean, it's just very rare that even if an offer is initially accepted, that you're not going to have some negotiation during the life of the transaction, whether it's repairs, whether it's credits, whether it's closing date, whether it's switching lenders. I mean, there's always something that comes up that is that's ongoing negotiated. So it seems. It's the transaction without a negotiation is very rare. Who you negotiate with your clients, and you negotiate with the co-op agent, which they call in long form the agent on the other side of the transaction. That's the co-op. So if you hear me call them the co-op, that's what that is. And the graphic kind of illustrates who's talking to who. So agency relationships, and I'm digressing a little bit, but the agents, when you enter into a transaction, you've presented your client with a pamphlet in Oregon called the Initial Agency Disclosure Pamphlet. And that pamphlet describes and defines the nature of the relationships in a real estate transaction. And I'm mentioning this only because this little graphic tells you, kind of describes what is in that initial agency disclosure pamphlet. There's an agency relationship between the buyer and the buyer's agent. There's an agency relationship between the listing agent and the seller. And as such, the buyer's agent and the seller's agent represent their clients, and actually the interface is between the agents at this stage. Now, once the property closes, that's a different story. But during the transaction, that's the negotiation paths. Common points of negotiation. Price, obviously, usually the primary factor, the cost of the property. And two, the terms, financial, time-based, or both. These are common, and these are usually set up either with the initial offer or shortly after the initial offer is made. I think there's more negotiation with repairs and inspection and all of that realm, but this is presenting that these things are negotiated, and they are through the offer and counteroffer process until you have mutual acceptance. Yeah, that's price and terms. Those are kind of the initial things that are negotiated. Any questions so far? I know I'm kind of whipping through this, but are we good? Okay. Ahas. I think I just aha'd you. So that's it, the ahas. 3 P's of negotiation, which are, drum roll, prepare, present, and position. The preparation is Preparation is the key to building confidence and ensuring a smooth negotiation process. That is true. Sometimes there's not a lot of time to prepare, though, so you'll get better at this as time goes on. Sometimes you have to the negotiations have to be done fairly quickly, so preparing is useful, but sometimes you have to do it quicker rather than longer, okay? And if it's time sensitive, and it always is. Present, moving into the negotiation process by presenting the offer. And then 3, position, move both parties closer until you have full or mutual agreement is the actual term, is mutual agreement. And again, this is for presenting the initial offer. I would not say that this is negotiating during the transaction. This is kind of the presentation of the offer. To prepare. These should be obvious. We'll just talk through these. Know your goal. Know your client. And I would say it's not know your goal, it's know the client's goal. Okay, I think is how that really should read. Know your client. Think ahead if you can. It's always good to be smarter than your client if you can. Set clear expectations. Be informed. Obey the laws. And I guess laws, I guess that's okay. I would say obey the rules, because there are also rules like with RMLS, which is our association, and they have rules that are laws, but I call them more rules, regulations. So it's kind of all of that. Know the documents inside and out. At least know them partially inside and out. Let's just start with that. And then if you have any questions about documents, as you get into this, we have contracts classes every Friday. Which you guys may or may not be aware of yet. We have contracts classes. I do a series on Washington State contracts for that side. My team does contracts and goes over stuff on the Oregon side. So we do a lot of that here. So, and then you can always come to any one of us with questions regarding documents, because I don't think anybody knows all of them inside and out. I mean, should you know kind of the primary parts of the sale agreement? Absolutely. But, you're not going to know all of them. But that's what we're here for, is to work through that. Ask purposeful questions, provides you with the points you'll negotiate on, provides insight on where you and your client will have leverage, setting clear expectations, allows you to get to know your client and their goal, and helps you learn what will make it a win-win negotiation for both parties. Cassie's talking, but I don't know if it's to me or to somebody else. Sorry. Okay, cool. Hello there, friend. So ask purposeful questions, providing you with the points that you'll negotiate on, insight, expectations, goal, and a win-win. And I don't know if it's in this material, but I think it's also important to really know the client's goal first. And then if you have to, you can work backward on the timeline to figure out how quickly you need to make an offer, how much time do you have to look, when do you need to close by, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's good to kind of know the goal and then work backward from there on both sides, both for listing and representing a buyer. Open-ended questions versus close-ended questions. Do you guys know the difference between an open-ended question and a close-ended question? Yes, Stephanie's nodding. I can't see the others because they don't have their cameras on. It's very sad. I'm staring into blackness. An open-ended question is one that has an unlimited response option. Okay, a closed-ended question is one that has a specific response, yes, no, maybe, or just kind of a one-worded response. Open-ended questions are extremely useful in gathering information. Closed-ended questions also gather information, but at a more specific level and are done usually later in the process. Starting with those open-ended questions: what additional information should I know? What is important about closing in X number of days, or you needing to move to San Francisco by this date? And how do you feel about that? You know, if you have a client that has a lot of feelings, that's fine. I mean, it's good to know that, but I think the first two are the most important open-ended questions. And then you can drill down into more specifics with your closed-ended questions. They both have a purpose. I wouldn't say it's one or the other. I think it's one and then the other is kind of how I utilize these. The what and the why questions: what would happen if, helps you anticipate the next steps of the negotiation. Why is this important to you? Why questions? It's good to know that information. Personally, I don't lean as heavily into why questions as I do into what questions. That's just my style. The why questions sometimes are difficult to answer. I never want to put a client on the defensive. You know, why is this important to you? Could put them on the defensive if not broached appropriately. So just kind of a little heads up on the whys. I would just don't not use it, but just be cognizant of sometimes you get a little bit more of a cagey response with a why question. Taking action. Here is the scenario. Before we get in the scenario, let me just check the chats briefly. There's something going on in chat. Let's see here.
I have a question, Jem.
Okay. Yes.
When the moment comes to put an offer, and
I'm sorry.
the buyer
Start again. Start again with the question.
Sorry. Yeah. When the moment comes to put an offer and the buyer asks my opinion, how much he should or how much he would put as an offer. For example, if the house is 400,000 and he asked my opinion, how much he would put as a reduction, should I put, say, I mean, the amount of the reduction, would that make would that affect the seller opinion?
Absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that actually offering a price opinion is the core, one of the core functions of your job as of brokering the sale. That is something
Okay.
that they are looking for your expertise in knowing what to offer, what the property is worth and what to offer. Supporting
Mhm.
that, and again, we're getting off here a little bit, but this is why the CMAs are so important. You guys know what a CMA is?
Yes.
Comparative market analysis is very important that you run CMAs, whether you're selling or buying. And the state of Oregon actually requires that you do CMAs for every transaction. I have not required them as an upload into Command, but they are actually required. So that is part of the research that you need to do is with a CMA, even if it's a simple CMA, you know, just to kind of get a ballpark and then offer that. That's your professional opinion based on your research, what they should offer. And also to do try to get additional information. Do they have any other offers? Is it a multiple offer situation? Has it been on the market a long time? Are there any problems with the property, et cetera, things like that that may come into play when determining an offer price.
So when I know there's an offer, I put a number above that offer, right? For
Maybe
just a try. Just
maybe you
maybe.
do, maybe you don't. You know, maybe
Oh,
you put the same offer, the same number, but you shorten the inspection period to 7 days, or you waive the appraisal, or you waive inspections entirely. I don't recommend that, but or something like that, or you offer a short close date, or you offer them the agreement to occupy after closing, that the seller, we can close, but you can stay in the house for another 30 days. There are other terms that you can negotiate
yeah.
in addition to price. But this is where it's important who you are as the buyer's agent, that you can sell this offer to the listing agent and show them, hey, my client is strong, they like this property, they are willing, they want to close, they are serious. You know, so it's that along with the number.
Yes. Thank you.
Of course, you're welcome. Oh, this says scenario. Are we doing a scenario? Well, we can talk through the scenario. I don't know that we have to do the scenario. Work with a partner, read the scenario. We'll read the scenario, I guess. List clarifying questions to ask your client. Apply your new knowledge of open and closed questions. Fair enough. Let's see what we got. Best practices when presenting. Call the other agent. Pay attention to nonverbal cues like pauses and voice qualities. True. Keep quiet once you present an offer. True. Listen carefully to what is important to the other party. True. Stay calm and relaxed. Try to. Focus on the customer's needs. Definitely. And give your offer the best chance. And that's what we were just talking about a minute ago, is presenting your offer in the strongest possible way. And that usually is having opened up a conversation with the other agent before you present, talking through what's important to the seller, drafting the offer, advising the listing agent that an offer is coming, sending the offer, circling back around and confirming that the offer was received, and then keep quiet. So there's a couple other things in there you want to do before you keep completely quiet. You want to confirm that the offer has been received, for sure.
So sending the offer, you mean just sending email?
Yes, you can send the offer via email as a PDF, you know, an attachment to an email. But
yes,
I always contact the other agent, the co-op agent, before sending. Always. I call them and say, hi, this is Nagam from Keller Williams Sunset Corridor. My client loves your house. We're going to be writing and sending an offer. And then they know to look for.
Why I give him introduction? Why?
Why? Because if they get an offer out of the blue, if you just send an offer, okay, without any kind of warm up, they don't know anything about the buyer. They don't really know you. They don't know level of interest. It's very black and white. You need to give it some color, you need to give it some tone.
Okay.
And that helps present your offer better than just pushing enter and sending a PDF.
I see.
The only exception to that is if you're dealing with something like Open Door or HUD or something where they tell you to send, they're just sending documents to a clearinghouse and then they're just making a decision based on finances and terms. But if there's a co-op involved, you definitely initiate and open a communication channel, always. All right. Acknowledge and affirm common ground, of course. Ask what and how questions. Know that positioning is a process. That is true. We just talked about that a little bit. And know when to walk away. You walk away.
So, James, I have another question.
Okay.
I heard a lot that the seller agent, when he know that the buyer agent is a new brand, he would be more controlling. He would be more confidence. So how we or me overcome that?
Overcome that.
I mean,
overcome that.
yeah.
You overcome that with script practice. You overcome that by listening in on an experienced agent presenting an offer. You overcome that by being able to assess the other agent's level of knowledge and their ability to negotiate. There's all kinds of things you can do there. Just because you're new doesn't mean that the other agent definitely has to know that. And even if they do know that, most agents are cooperative. You might get the occasional agent who's a bull or tries to control. And if you are feeling uncomfortable with that, you come to me or your team, the person in charge of your team, and then they can talk they can talk.
I'm sure.
Hopefully it doesn't come to that, but it is known to happen.
Okay.
But most agents are nice, but they can assess if you're new or not.
I'm sure about that. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like in your case, if they mess with you, then they have to mess with me, or whoever, so it's a little bit of a different. Hi, Jesse. We are a little bit into this, but welcome, and we'll go from here. We're just talking about negotiating. So that's it. Acknowledge and affirm common ground, ask what and how questions, know that positioning is a process, and know when to walk away. Okay, what does this say? Instructions, scenario. We'll see how this goes. Work your same partner, read the scenario, complete the role play. Let's at least read the scenario, probably together, unless you feel the need to break into partners. But let's just take a look at this. Let's see what we've got. We have an ahas. I guess we're moving along here. Negotiation tips. Again, these are pretty, I think they're obvious, but let's walk through these anyway. Number one, be professional, of course. This is your job. I mean, this is what you've chosen to do. So that just goes without saying. You're representing yourself, your organization, and your business. Number two, keep your goal in mind. Again, it's the client's goal. But yes, keep that in mind that is the client's goal is your goal when they hire you to represent them. 3, pay attention to your communication and tone with anyone involved in the transaction. For sure. You can also leverage communication and tone to emphasize certain points, whether you are serious about something and need to step it up, whether you can be a little bit more relaxed about something you guys agree on. All kinds of, you can communicate with urgency if you need an answer immediately. There's all kinds of ways to use communication and tone when involved in a transaction. For me personally, and in my role as risk management director and managing broker, but also when I'm in the field, I always try to find the common ground, always try to keep things as a housekeeping issue and not a dispute. Just, figuring out what all the parties agree to and trying to keep it in that space. Continually refer to your client's motivation when speaking with them. You may or may not have to do that. It depends. If your client's highly motivated and they know they want to close, you won't need to do a lot of that. If you have a client who's entered into a contract and then waivers and thinking about terminating and all of that, you kind of need to do an assessment. Are they serious? Or are they looking for a way out, or what's their motivation? But you can gauge that depending on the level of your client's seriousness. Don't reveal too much. Listen more than talk. Keep your client's motivation close to your chest. Well, all of that is true because you have a fiduciary duty to your client as their agent to protect their interests. And by revealing too much or talking too much, you may be compromising your client's fiduciary responsibility, which is, of course, a big part of it is financial. So you don't reveal too much. This is what negotiation is all about, is determining that common ground without laying down everything. And number 6, again, important for both you and your client, don't be attached to the outcome. The transaction could terminate. It could close late. It could close with repairs, a bunch of repairs needed. You could have a grouchy client. You could have a client that's awesome. You don't be attached. That's the goal. Just treat it as a business. I mean, love on your clients, but don't get attached to how it ends.
So I have a question.
Yes.
It had said a scenario and all of that. Is there a scenario, since we didn't run through one, is there one in command or somewhere that we can listen to?
Yeah, I don't know.
Can I do
Let's go through. Let me look here and see if there's a scenario and whether they're worth running through or whether it's just as valuable if we talk through them.
Okay.
But let me see here. Bear with me just a second. What do I see here? I mean, I can always set up a scenario if you want it. I see them
Well,
every day.
I'm a new agent, so it's always great to just kind of hear.
Yeah, of course. Like what,
Right.
I don't really see much on a scenario. I see there's a slide in there for a scenario, but I mean, it doesn't give the scenario.
Okay. And that's fine. I'm sure that there's plenty of other
Yeah.
things on
So
command.
do you want to talk through one? Should we do a hypothetical one? I mean, I certainly can. I can.
Put me on the spot.
No, but it's good. I mean, this is good. So if say, you have your buyer clients, they're first-time buyers, so they're admittedly a little shaky on the situation. They have, let's say in this market, let's be realistic, they have a $550,000. They're pre-approved for $550,000.
Okay.
They find a house that they like after you've shown them, you've done your work and you've narrowed it down to like 4 or 5 houses that they really like, you know, without showing them 50. I don't believe in that, but that's a subject for another day.
Yeah,
But you've done your homework by listening to what they say, you know, and what their budget actually is and all of that. And they find a house and it's on the market for 565. Okay, so they're pre-approved for 550. It's on the market for 565. Let's say days on market is 20 days.
Mm.
Okay. Tell me, kind of give me steps on what you might do. And then we'll talk through it. If you can't think of it, I'll tell you what I would do if you.
well, you could say that, I've got this first time home buyer that are really love your home and are interested in the school district that the house is in, love what the homeowner has done with everything. Because you can't, you don't want to say what their budget is, but you'd probably want to offer a little bit below. Is that correct? Because
what I would do is, open up a conversation with the listing agent as we talked before. I don't know that I would right out of the gate volunteer that they're first time buyers.
Okay.
I don't know that I would do that.
Okay.
I would say I've got great buyers who are, want to write an offer on your property. They're pre-approved for 550 right now. I see your listing's been on for 25 days. What do we say? 25 days.
And that's okay to say that what their budget is. I mean,
what they're you can see,
what they're pre-approved
not their
for.
budget. They're pre-approved. What they're pre-approved for. Their budget might be significantly higher, but they're not willing to. They may or may not be willing to share that information at this point.
Gotcha.
But you could say something like that. You're not breaching. The seller's going to have to know anyway because you're going to present a pre-approval letter with an offer.
Correct.
But I might start probing around and say, hey, I see you've been on the market for 3 weeks now. Have you had much interest? Have you had any offers? Has the seller accepted any and rejected them, or no offers so far, waiting for the right buyer? And just you can be kind of gentle and kind of get information that way.
Okay.
That'll be super helpful because then they'll say, oh yeah, we have 2 offers coming in, or it might be no activity at all. Or we're expecting an offer, or the seller's having the water heater replaced, or they might volunteer additional information, which could be helpful.
Okay.
And then you can carry that, and then you've established a relationship with the listing agent, and they know who you are and that you have an interested buyer.
Correct.
You can take that information back to your buyer client and say, here's what I found out.
Okay.
They've had no offers on the house. They've had traffic through their opens, but nobody's written yet. So we have a shot. And then you have done a couple of quick CMAs around, if you can find one, so that that 550 might be okay to write an offer.
Okay.
550. And if your buyers agree, write up an offer. And again, you've established communication with the listing agent already. I would at that point call them or text and say, hey, we're about to send you an offer. Just wanted to let you know.
Okay.
Send the offer, have them confirm via email that they received it. And then that's where you stay quiet.
Okay. Okay.
Just kind of get a feel for that listing agent.
Right. Right. And it's the same sort of thing. I was listening to a breakout session from Family Reunion because I didn't go, but I was able to listen to a few things. And that's what he said, is just ask tons of questions.
Yeah.
Get as much information about someone who's selling their property or someone that's buying, and just kind of get more connected with them. So that's great to kind of form a little bit of a relationship with the other agent as well, to kind of just, get them comfortable with who you are. So
Totally.
Okay,
And I ask my personal style, I ask not only open-ended questions, I ask really open-ended questions like, what is going on here? What is happening? Talk to me,
okay,
you know, like that open. And
okay,
just let them spill their guts to the extent, and then you can go to more specific open-ended questions. If you need to, but I usually, my first conversation when I'm breaking ice with a listing agent I don't know is what's happening? Talk to me, you
okay,
know,
okay,
talk to me. What's going on? You know, what do you
okay,
know? And
okay,
then you're not threatening at all. And
exactly,
you're also not sounding scripted. Even if
right,
even if you're being highly strategic, that initial just
right.
tell me what's going on, what's happening.
Well,
Um,
because they're probably expecting specific questions,
of,
you know, and if
of
you do this one is a little bit different than what they're up to, kind of
Yeah, and
set you
you
apart.
don't want to come across again, you know, leaning back into what Nagam was saying about being a new agent.
Right,
You don't want to sound too, I don't think you want to sound so scripted that they can tell you're reading off of a card, off
right.
of a book. You
Yep.
know, what is the seller's motivation to, you know, like, come on, you know,
Yeah,
be a little
exactly.
more organic about it. And of course, I've got my, you know, as you should, either a pad or
Mhm.
better yet, a book. And while I'm talking to them, I'm writing stuff down, okay? And I'm collecting that, even if it sounds very organic and open-ended, and getting as much information as I can and let them do the work. Let them come to me.
Exactly.
Don't you
Exactly.
love that?
Perfect.
Don't you
Exactly.
love it
Yeah.
when they do all the work?
Yeah.
So that's
Well, I
kind of my
appreciate that. Thank
yeah,
you
oh,
very much.
absolutely. That would be kind of my initial way of doing that. And then you can also find out if you've got a hard-edged, you know, if it's hard-edged, say, hey, yeah, we've got one offer in already. The seller hasn't responded. I'm expecting two more. Give me your
Yeah.
highest and best.
Okay.
You're going to hear that a lot. Send in your highest and best.
Right.
Then you're like,
Okay.
cool, great, okay, well, we'll do what we can. Thank you for that information. Then you
Okay.
go back to your buyer and say, hey, they've got offers on the table. We've got to do highest and best. What do you want to do?
Right. Okay.
And then the
Perfect.
other would be the same. Tell the listing agent, we're sending it in. You don't need to tell them the terms. We're
Mhm.
sending it in. You send it in, confirm receipt, stay quiet.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. You're welcome. Was that helpful?
Very.
You said confirm, sorry, you said confirm the receipts. You mean the reply of
Doesn't
my
have to be
offer?
a response to the offer. When you send the offer via email, you'll attach a PDF, which is the offer documents will be a PDF that you've attached. And in the email, you will say something to the listing agent. Attached is my offer for your listing at 2700 Southwest Boundary Street. Please confirm receipt. Thank you very much, Nagam. Okay, and then that ensures that the listing agent received your offer.
Gotcha.
Okay, so always ask for confirmation of receipt in writing. In writing. Ahas. Okay, what do we have for these ahas? How has your thinking changed in the last 44 minutes of listening to me rant on? What ideas or mindsets were new? What do you feel differently about? What has been meaningful for you today? How will your behaviors be different going forward? What actions will you take? What tools, models, or systems will you use? And how will they make you accountable? So I'm thinking my biggest my biggest thing is using what I call super open-ended questions. I think is a good way to start a negotiation that's very non-threatening and lets them do all the work to the extent that they will. Almost never will you say, hey, what's happening? Talk to me. And an agent will go, what do you want to know? I mean, that they could be that way. And then you can drill down into more specific questions, but that almost never happens. Any other ahas here? Any other comments on this? Any actions you're thinking of that sound good, even if you haven't exercised them yet, or?
So if I do CMA for particular house, how many houses you recommend I do?
For doing a CMA,
Uh-huh,
at least 3.
at least. Okay.
Yeah, but it depends, CMAs, it depends on the price point. Because the higher the price point, there may be fewer and fewer CMAs because it's a more unique property or more expensive. If there's something unusual about the property, you may only come up with one CMA, with one comparable property. If you have a $500,000 house in Beaverton, you may have 10 of them, and then you can narrow it down to something more specific. So, I kind of like 3 is kind of my number, but it really depends on the property.
And James, are you saying like 3 solds within, let's say the last 3 months, 3, current listings, 3 pending, a combination of them? Because this is something that I like to ask a lot of people because I feel like all the answers are a little different.
That is a really good question. Okay, that is a really good question. Because the market in the last couple of years has been so shaky and weird, it's really hard. CMAs have become harder to do. There's no question about that. Okay, so I don't know that you want to go further back than maybe 90 days or 4 months, just because things have changed so much. As a result of that, of not going back as far, you might have to do a wider geographic area. Okay, just a little bit wider. You want to make it, if it's not the immediate neighborhood, you want to make it at least a similar neighborhood and not like something completely different. But you may have to expand that circle a little bit. The other things that come into play are age of the house, year built, square footage, of course. Sometimes you find like a perfect match, but it's like 4,000 square feet instead of 2,500, and there are calculations you can use to correct that if everything else is lining up. Things like that, 1-car garage, 2-car garage, street parking only. Is it on a what I call a yellow line street? Is it an arterial street with a yellow line, or is it a soft arterial, or is it not an arterial? Is it in a neighborhood?
Property size.
Property size is another one. Acreage, especially out in the suburbs, again, lot size is another thing to look at. In town, less so in the suburbs, more in town. Is it facing another house across the street, or is it facing commercial property or a parking lot or a brick wall or something else? Those are kind of the finer points in a CMA, but they're countable for sure.
And James, I know I am, and some of the other people in class are. I don't know about some other ones, but say in a year, I have a wild property for one reason or the other, right? And I'm trying to do a CMA on it. It's totally fine for me to send it out to somebody else that I think has more experience in that area to be like, can you tweak this for me? Is that something that generally most agents within KW are going to be cool with doing?
Oh, you mean like sending it out for what's called a BPO, like a broker price opinion?
Sure. I'd never heard that, but sure.
Yeah, it's a BPO. It's a broker price opinion. Absolutely. They may or may not charge you for that. If they're, if you want another opinion on price based on if you have a unicorn or something really weird, absolutely, you can do that. Some may want to say, hey, I'll do it for $50, or $100 or whatever, the going rate, like if you do it for a client, it's $350. That would kind of be my number. If you've got a client that's like, hey, or somebody says, hey, I'm considering about listing my house. What do you think? Or say, hey, you've got a buyer that wants to buy a unicorn, or any house, and they want a price opinion. an official write-up, $350, baby. Well, you can absolutely do those. And you probably haven't been presented that option or talked about it much, but those are called BPOs, broker price opinion, and you can definitely do it with your license. You're definitely can do those.
I'm sorry, I obsess over CMAs. You can ask Mara. I probably drive that woman crazy because one, I'm a nuts and bolts kind of girl, but two, I'm a country girl all day long. And I, as of now, want to specialize in like a farm and ranch kind of thing.
Okay,
And so that's like my absolute obsession.
well then make it, and then my only advice to you is make you be the expert in that, where your knowledge surpasses mine on how do you assess farm and acreage. Production, water rights, all of that stuff, outbuildings, there's, all kinds of, all those pieces, and make it your thing to learn it. If that's your thing, become an expert on that, and then you will get business because people will know you're the farm and ranch expert, and know how to deal with, tax levies, like if a property's levied for taxes because it's producing crops, or, the value of an outbuilding, or is there a producing well on the property, or is it shit, all of that realm. I mean, good for you. Make it your business to become the expert, and maybe, who knows, down the road, people will come to you for opinions on that.
That'd be awesome.
At $350 a pop. Or whatever it is, yeah, see, I'm more of an urban guy, so I can tell you more about condos and the nightmares of HOAs and all of that, but yeah, but that's just another, most of the business is kind of in between the two extremes, but it's, like having some farm and ranch knowledge would be good, and I would put in there, where are you?
I'm in Drain, so smack dab between Eugene and Roseburg.
Okay, down there.
Yeah.
I was going to say another thing, in part, in that would become a vineyard expert, like, is it kind of, like what can you do, with that? And then of course, there's also the weed farm, scenario. Okay.
Yeah.
Especially the further south you go,
Yeah.
believe me, the number of properties that we have in contract right now involving a weed farm is not zero.
Oh, I know. They're big in Medford.
Yeah,
My
big
dad
down
used
there.
to do
So look,
for hydros.
Those are offshoots of farm and ranch, but certainly like up, especially like in, in the valley, the whole vineyard thing, like my client wants to buy a vineyard, or I want, just to kind of have some knowledge around that also would be, I think would be valuable. Yep. Yep. All right. Are we having fun so far? Daily success systems. If you follow this diligently, you will have results no matter what. Do I follow this daily? No, but I think about it. But it's definitely, if you have just kind of a thing like this, modeled, what I have for my business, just as in this job, is a things to do today pad. Okay, and I write everything down, even if it's on my calendar electronically. It feels good to just kind of write it down and then check it off as I go through it. And you could do something as simple as that, is have like printouts of this or something, and you have your thing, and you check it off, or you have some way of having measurable goals and measurable achievement. If you're disciplined enough to do that, to treat this like a job and do it every day or 5 days a week, you will get results. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. Because you will find out quickly what's working for you and what isn't working for you, and how much effort is needed, and so on and so forth. I'm a big proponent of handwritten notes. I have my own little secrets. But handwritten notes to clients, I think are nice. I'm big on that. Social media and engagement. There are folks younger and more experienced than I am in social media engagement who are really good at it. you know, and we have, you know, Adriana in our office and all the market centers have people who are really good at helping you like set up your Instagram and getting things out there and properties you've seen and properties you're listing or all kinds of stuff. There's all kinds of things you can do with social media. And then appointments, agreements, and closings, just being able to track all that, super good. Treat it like a job. Not a hobby. It's not a hobby, it's a job. The DNC list, the Telephone Consumer Protection Act, I have opinions on this, but I will tell you that we are required to provide this information to you, that there is a TCPA list. It is important that you become familiar with this document. I don't think that any of you at this point in your careers are using auto dialers or artificial voicing. But they're mentioned here because it's become epidemic and AI is only going to make it worse. Well, worse in terms of not being able to distinguish whether it's a real person or not. There is a DNC registry, whether you decide as an individual or if you join a team that has a DNC registry, they can give you guidance on that, of how that works. And off the record-ish, I will tell you that, how do I say this? People that are on this list that have gone to the trouble of putting themselves on the DNC list are often people that are looking for trouble. Let's just put it that way. I had a complaint the other day about a newer agent who accidentally called somebody on the list. And I heard about it. I got a message from the person, and the person said, I got this really creepy phone call from this creepy agent. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I don't think it was a creepy agent, and I don't think the message was creepy. He's trying to sell, he's trying to generate business. I don't know how creepy that is. So I think she was kind of looking for trouble, and I just tried, my response was apologetic, but I didn't really like bend over backward because I don't want to inflame it that we did something egregious, even though, you know, I just said, we'll make sure that you're off the list, you know, that we won't contact you again, but I didn't like get into it. Does that make sense? Do you know what is that what it, you know what I'm saying? It's like some people live to look for trouble.
And on those auto dialers, I come from 10 years in insurance, and we did do a lot of auto dialers.
Okay.
A good auto dialer, when you do put it in, they are worth a little bit more money if you're going to use them, because they will do what's called scrubbing for you,
Right.
and
Right.
they will match them with that. So it's because the scrubbing of it takes a long time if you're doing it manually. So
Okay.
if you guys choose to do an auto dialer, then I 100% say pay the little bit more to get it where it automatically scrubs it for you. It's just so much better.
Were you cold calling in the insurance business?
Oh, yes. I
Wow.
owned my own agency for a year. That's how I got off the ground. And that's all I did was cold call.
Here's my challenge to you then. If you're not making 6 digits in 18 months, you ain't doing something right. Because if you
It's a hobby.
well, if you can lead, that's one of the hardest parts of this business is doing that lead gen, being disciplined and making those calls. If you can do that at some level of comfort, you will do well. I'm confident of that. Good for you. I see me, I don't like making those calls. That's why I took a W-2 job. I'm not as good with that.
My biggest hurdle on that is not making the calls. I'm the person that can walk into a room not knowing a single person, and I leave knowing 99% of people. So same with phone calls. I'm totally fine with making those. I'm just like, I gotta figure out, as a new agent that doesn't have an income at this point, obviously my husband's holding down the fort.
Right.
That has little funds to put stuff into that. Like, where am I going to get those? Like, the little bit I got on open houses, I've reached out to them and I'm just like, hey, we talked at the open house. Just wanted to get in more details what it is that you liked and disliked about the house so that I could get that over to the listing agent. You know what? I have no problem with any of that. It's getting the phone numbers to call. So if you guys have
Okay,
ideas on that, that's beyond the open house or door knocking that I'm doing, I'm
oh,
all about hearing it.
oh, there's all kinds of that. Again, that's, you know, that,
Yeah.
yes, that's not today, but yes, oh yeah, okay, for sure. Absolutely. So,
And-
yeah, the do not call list. Yes, Stephanie.
I have a question. So I'm going through the required 27-hour class. And in section 5, it talks about the do not call list. And it said that real estate licensees are required to search the do not call registry once every 31 days and drop the number of registered consumers from their call list. So you have to go on every 31 days? That was a question for me.
If that's what
Is-
they're saying, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm
Okay.
not, I'm not
Okay.
supervising that. I'm not
Yeah.
supervising that activity as
Okay.
your
I'll
managing
ask Allison.
broker. But that would be something that then you would then self-directed. Yeah, you know, I'm not making you sign a form that says you did it.
Okay.
I could, but I'm not doing that. So if they're saying that, that is a self-directed activity. And
Okay.
my expectation is that you stay out of hot water.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm here to keep you out of real estate jail, but hopefully it
Yeah.
doesn't get to that point.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I engage in every conversation in the spirit of contribution, and people are happy to be in relationship with me. Yeah, we've been talking about that all afternoon. Now it says we're getting into a role model role play, 20 minutes. Let's see what we've got going on here. And we can talk through this or we can do it. We'll see what it is, but prepare your conversation list, and they're showing a picture of a contacts page in a spiral. How old-fashioned, but there it is. And so you'd have your contacts, you'd have your name, their phone number, their email. You may also have their social media, their messenger address or something like that. I reach out through Messenger all the time, you know, that's neither email nor phone nor, you know, there. Now let's dive into this and see what it says. Real play, lead gen conversations. You must comply with the TCPA and any other federal, state, or local laws, including business-to-business calls and texts. Never call or text a number on any do not call list, and do not use an auto dialer or artificial voice or pre-recorded messages without proper consent. Contact your attorney to ensure compliance. Yes, that's above what we're doing here. But yes, that is for sure if you're going to get hardcore into doing that. Okay, update contacts, follow up. Let's see if we're supposed to do a scenario. Let's see here. Well, I'm just going through the comments. Jesse put in some great comments here. Tax deferral for farms and ranch for sure. Yes. So do we want to run through some role play, or do we want to talk about it, or what do we want to do here, guys?
I have a question.
Yes.
In terms of negotiation, other than seller agent, with whom I would negotiate mostly, other than seller agent?
You would negotiate with your client
Okay.
in terms of a buyer representation agreement. If you're representing a buyer, you know that the state of Oregon is making buyer representation agreements mandatory effective January 1st, 2025, following the state of Washington's lead, which has them in effect already. And you would negotiate your compensation with your buyer client as you're presenting your value proposition and what you bring to the table. And the way I look at it, a very wise listing agent advised to me that in a buyer consult, think about this, that 1% of your compensation is for preparing a CMA, offering advice, and providing your client with education about the market and specific things real estate related in general. 1% of your compensation is for the negotiating, for going the back and forth, for drafting a addenda and making those conversations. And sometimes those conversations are very challenging with another agent, but you're paying your client, your buyer client, you're being compensated for that work, for negotiating on behalf of your client. And then another 1%, you carry legal liability for a 2-year period after the transaction closes as a licensed broker. That's also part of your compensation, is taking on that liability. So right there, that's 3%. So I'm not here to promote a specific number in terms of what buyer compensation should be. But that formula, I have that written on a card on my desk that I look at. That is 1% for CMA advice and education, 1% for negotiation, and 1% for legal liability.
So what about I heard that we have chance to negotiate about the inspector and appraisal. How?
You do. That has not been mentioned at all in this material. Let's go through this, and if they don't bring it up, we will definitely address that specifically. Okay, if that's okay, I can address what that looks like. Those take place, the inspection takes place, the negotiation for that takes place after an inspection is conducted by a licensed professional inspector that your buyer has hired. Okay, is when that negotiation starts.
I think James, Nagam, they're saying like something comes back and the buyer's wanting it fixed, is what you're saying, right, James? That would be
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be once you're in contract, a
Mhm.
professional inspection is conducted. And then based on the results of that inspection, you draft, the buyer's agent drafts a repair addendum based on the findings from that inspection and starts negotiating that with the, submitting that to the listing agent for negotiating it on that side. That's a big part. That's the biggest part, I think, of the negotiation process in a transaction, I think, is nailing that down. I have more problems in that area than I do in any other. It's not the upfront stuff, it's the inspection. Would you agree, Jesse? I see. In terms of appraisal, if you want to address that specifically, you know what an appraisal is, correct? Everybody knows what an appraisal is. And who does the appraisal? It's done by a representative of the lender. Okay, so the lender conducts an appraisal of once you're in contract, the lender conducts an appraisal based on value, is what they're looking for. They may flag obvious health and safety.
Or the appraisal.
Or, I'm sorry, you break it.
Sorry, just because everybody knew they ordered the appraisal and then it go to a pool and then the appraisers pick out of that because there can't be one appraiser that works for one certain bank.
Correct. Thank you for clarifying that. That's
You
absolutely
understand?
true. Yep,
Okay.
absolutely. So it's
Yeah.
the playing field is level based on that it's not like one appraisal, one lender. That's for sure. A point of clarification that a lot of agents, even seasoned agents, get confused. The appraisal is not a separate contingency. It is part of the financing contingency. So in the result, if you waive the appraisal, you'll hear that batted around a lot, that term, right? Like, we're waiving the appraisal. That's fine. You still have a financing contingency in place. But the appraisal, a low appraisal, does not become part of that financing contingency in that case. That means if you're waiving the appraisal, and if you can't cover that, you're still liable, if that makes it's it's not a separate appraisal. It's part of finance. It's part of the financing contingency.
So you're saying when somebody is like, oh, I'm waiving the appraisal, say the deal is for 200,000. I'm just throwing a number out.
Okay.
And it only appraises for 195. So obviously the bank, the lender will not lend more than the percentage of the 100% of the appraisal of 195.
Right.
Right. But I'm waiving that because I'm going to pay the difference out of my pocket. That's what you're saying?
Yeah. If you waive the appraisal, if you've waived the appraisal, you're obligated to make up that difference. Okay, for sure. If you don't waive the appraisal, and I recommend not waiving it for other reasons, and it comes in low, you can either terminate based on the failure of financing contingency, because it's part of the financing contingency, or you can negotiate. I mean, this is another possibility, like, hey, I can bring up to 5,000, can seller lower their price by 5,000 or something, or cover, like, you can negotiate that if there is an appraisal gap. Most gaps are quite small. I will say that I see. You hear about these, $100,000 appraisal gaps, but usually something's way off if there's a gap that large.
On the house that we have now,
Yeah,
between the accepted offer amount and the appraisal was only $4,500.
very common. Yeah, just
Yeah.
very common to have a small gap like that. And if you can't figure out how to cover that, you're not doing your job as a broker. Like, figure out how are you gonna cover that? Like, you figure that out if it's that amount. But that's very common. So yeah, the appraisal is another negotiating a piece that can be negotiated. Does that answer your question, Nagum?
Yes, but I'm still not yet why it would matter to waive it or not. Either way, I will pay it at the end.
Well, it matters to a seller who doesn't want to terminate based on the fact if you've offered $500,000 and the property comes in at 450, the appraisal comes in at 450, that you're not going to terminate. You have waived the right to terminate.
Mm-hmm. Got you.
Okay, that's why
Shouldn't negotiation be the very first? We were only $4,500 off, and we said, okay, well, we can either jump out of this or we can send over a new offer because the other one's now pretty much void, right?
I wouldn't send over a new offer. I would amend it with an addendum.
Okay, yeah, okay, so we did an addendum, I guess you would say, that says, okay, well, it appraised for 317.5, we'll give you 317.5.
Yeah. Oh, you absolutely can renegotiate the sale price. Absolutely.
And we actually, because we wanted the property so bad, said, we'll actually split the difference with you in closing costs. So we asked for
Beautiful.
$4,500 less in closing, but just took it off the top. It just
Great.
kind of worked out that way for us.
whatever the buyer, the seller, and the lender, whatever, if everyone's in agreement, then it's a housekeeping issue, you know, in terms of that. There's, you know, there's no real negotiation, everyone's in agreement. That's a good place to be. Does that answer? I think Jesse had something to say.
I don't know, it really depends on your loan type as to, you know, how valuable an appraisal is. You know, if you're cash, you know, you're a cash buyer, so it's up to the buyer. But if a bank's involved, an appraisal, it's up to the bank if they're going to waive an appraisal, depending on, you know, if they know that client, if that client goes to that bank a lot, you know, that client's steady. Sometimes the bank will waive that appraisal because they know that that client is, you know, a good bet for them, versus like a first time home buyer, you know, with an FHA loan. If the property comes in less, then it would definitely be a negotiation, because they're not going to have the funds to make up difference, and no bank is going to pay over what an appraisal call, you know, what appraisal comes in at. So it really depends on your loan type, so keep that in mind.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. Your loan type, and again, and your standing as a client, if you're well qualified, yeah, appraisals get waived. If they know you're good for it and you're well qualified, they do, and that is determined by the lender. You're absolutely right. Any other questions on the world of appraisal? Are we good, Nagam?
Very.
Okay.
I'm always there. So it's a good idea. If it's your first time, the appraisal happens.
Your connection is very choppy, Jesse, but I value what you're saying, so I'm hoping that we can establish a clearer connection, because you've brought some value to this session, so I appreciate that. All right, lead gen conversations. Is this something you guys want to role play out, or do you want to talk more about it? I mean, what do you guys want to do? I'm open either way. Oh, Jesse's saying, yeah, that is a good tip. Thank you for putting that in the chat. One more thing on appraisal is that Jesse, as an agent, is always present during the appraisal. And if you can get the information of when the appraiser is going to be there, absolutely, that is a great strategy to talk it up or point things out or do whatever you can do. Absolutely. That is good. And it is definitely possible and not out of school to be present during an appraisal. Good point. Good thing to do as a first-time agent. I agree. It's good to see how that process works. Nagam, that would be good for you, is go on an appraisal. Any other
Say
questions?
that again.
I'm saying it would be good for you to find a property that's in contract in our brokerage, and that an appraisal is going to be done, and attend the appraisal, to be at the house while the appraisal is being conducted, so you can see how they do it.
Yeah, me too. I wish that. Yeah.
That would be good. That's Jesse's suggestion, and that's a good one. I agree. That would be a beneficial, so you can see how they're doing. And the idea is that you can point out features or talk it up. I mean, you know, you can definitely put a little guardrail or a little guidance there on the appraiser. Never hurts. Definitely.
So is it legal that if I present the day of inspection, or is it okay if I be there in the day of inspection?
So if you're representing the buyer, you should be there during the inspection. You should be there.
Oh.
Okay.
why I should.
Why? Because yeah, you're responsible for that. It's your buyer. Your buyer has hired someone to do this.
Mhm.
You're there to open up the property. You are there to answer any
Ah,
questions.
see.
You're
Yeah.
there for when the inspection is concluded. You're there for the inspector's presentation. He should have been taking pictures during the inspection. He will present a well
I shouldn't take picture.
no, you don't take the picture. The inspector does all of
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
Okay, and the inspector then will present, usually on an iPad, will go through with you and show you the pictures that they've taken. They will share with you their notes that they've taken during the inspection, and they will prepare, and then you will have firsthand knowledge of what to expect when the inspector goes back to their office and writes their report.
Mhm.
So yes, you should be there during the inspection, especially as a newer agent. You should definitely be there. And probably even if you're not a newer agent, you should be there.
So
And
I
your buyer should also be there at least for the presentation part.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask because I'm a buyer that was very involved in both the purchases of my home and all but crawled on under the house with them.
Yeah, now that depends. Some inspectors don't want you hanging over their shoulder every minute.
I don't care. I'm paying you. That's how I looked at it as a buyer is I'm paying you. So I'll stay out of your way, but I'm going to be watching.
Yeah,
You're my employee at this time.
Yeah, and you can do that. I usually will have the buyer, most buyers that I've worked with usually show up an hour into the inspection and then we'll be there. And then, if there's any questions that they can ask, and then they're there for the kind of summary presentation. So they know what to expect. I think that's good. And it also gives a buyer kind of the buyer can see someone with a fresh pair of objective eyes kind of looking at their property. I mean, it's kind of good, they're not selling it, they're assessing it. So that's good. As you as a buyer can attest to, like they're looking at it very objectively and may see things that neither of you have seen. So yeah, we're making a homework list for Nagam, but it's good for everybody. You go on an appraisal and you go on an inspection.
Both I can.
Yeah, inspection's easy. You could shadow or you can sit for, sometimes agents look for other agents to sit for their inspection. That's very common. Some agents will even pay for you to sit at their inspection. If they're busy doing working on something else, they'll pay you $50 to sit for their inspection. So that's easy. Appraisals a little more, it's not quite as easy to shadow, but it can be done. All right.
Another thing,
Yeah.
so we were in the middle of buying our house during Snowmageddon. And we're rural. And so I understand that we're kind of a little more last on the list to want to deal with because we're not just right in town.
Right.
But my agent called me to let me know that she had received word that the appraiser was coming out when there was no power to the property, which then would mean that they would have to go out again when there was power and that they may charge me. So she's like, I'm just preparing you for when the appraiser calls you. And so the appraiser did call me and said, I'm on the way to the property. And I know that there's issues in this area with power currently, that where we lived was out of power for 23 days during Snowmageddon. And they said, okay, so we're going to go do the basic, like the majority of it. And then we'll have to come back for when there's power, to do the rest when there's power. And we're going to charge you an additional $400. And because my my agent was amazing and said, Cassie, you can tell them that's absolutely not happening. And if they choose to do it that way, that you will not pay them the additional money.
Right.
And that's exactly what I did. And so they pushed the appraisal out a little bit farther.
Yeah.
And we had to ask for an extension on the closing because of it. But I wasn't going to pay another $400 because they decided during the middle of Snowmageddon they were going to make a trip out here on a road that actually really is not that great to be traveling with 3 feet of snow on the ground. And this is not a plowed road. This is not something that they
Right.
plowed.
And this is where you as a buyer's agent want to be communicating that to a listing agent and say, listen, my appraiser's ready to go, but there's no power at your listing. My buyer will have to incur a fee if they have to come out again. Are you willing to cover that fee because your listing doesn't have power? Or should we reschedule and extend the date? I mean, you can kind of frame, like you have some wiggle room there, to try to figure out what that is. It sounds like you were able to resolve it. But yeah, as long as you're communicating, again, and that's, to me, that's an example of a negotiation right there, is that, because you do not want to pay for that second trip. That to me is just junk money. It's just throwaway money. It's like making sure that your smoke alarms are in place. God, if if they're not in place and the appraiser has to come back out and see those in place, that to me is just throwaway money.
So let me ask you that. So let's say I'm a buyer's agent, we're walking through your house. I would hope a selling agent would be telling the homeowner, listen, we've got to get this taken care of ASAP, right? That's probably what I would do as a selling agent, realizing they don't have the up-to-date stuff. That said, if I'm a buyer's agent and I'm noticing this isn't, I don't see any, right? But for us, there wasn't a carbon monoxide detector in the home. There was smoke detector. My agent was amazing and noticed that and actually called the listing agent after we did the first walkthrough, and we're like, okay, we're writing an offer as we speak. But there doesn't seem to be a carbon monoxide detector in the home. Can you make sure that's taken care of? Kind of thing right away.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I don't remember whether she put that contingent like right away in any documents or whatever, but I wasn't going to pay an additional fee for them to come out to make sure there was a carbon monoxide detector.
So glad you're bringing this up, because couple of points here. Smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors are the responsibility of the seller. That there's no wiggle room on that. A great thing to negotiate, and Jesse probably already knows this, when you're drafting the offer, the default for the seller installing those alarms is 15 days. I changed that to 5. I make sure that's done within 5 days of mutual acceptance. Get those detectors in place, and then it's not an issue. They're in place. Go to Home Depot and you can get a plug-in monoxide detector that just plugs in and done it. But that is the seller's responsibility. The seller.
That's exactly what they did. They just
Yeah.
made a plug-in one. So in our
Yeah.
hall,
Yeah.
there was a plug-in one right by our bedrooms.
Yep. But I changed that. I changed the default from 15. I put 5.
Okay, if I put from 15 to 5, wouldn't that risk you about the whole deal?
Not at all. I don't
No,
think so.
no.
Nope.
And the other side might change their mind, or
Not
No.
really. It's more of a housekeeping issue. I mean, it's definitely a negotiation point,
okay.
but it's to everyone's advantage to have the seller get those in place as quickly
Mhm.
as possible so that there
Mhm.
aren't additional fees charged. Or, and it's something that the seller's going to have to do anyway. And Jesse's right in the chat. It's required for the sale to happen anyway. Absolutely. That it has to be done. So I just say, why not just get it done? Just get it done. And if after the inspection, if the smoke alarms are older than 10 years old, they have to be replaced anyway. And that will be definitely, if the seller can't figure it out by reading the code, how old they are, an inspector will. And then those are changed out at that time. But initial installation, 5 days. That's at least my opinion.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. That's an aha, just throwing that out there.
Okay, good. I'm good. Since we're not
A
role
lot of ahas today.
if we're not role playing, I at least want to have a meaningful conversation with you guys. I think we can get more information out this way
Yeah.
than role playing, if you to be honest. So thank you for working with me on that. But yeah,
Thank
that's something I always will do. The other thing, since we're talking about that, and again, it's not in this material, in drafting the sale agreement, I know it's an extra document, but rather than check off the box under inspections on licensed professional inspections, I am a big proponent of using OREF Form 58, which is the professional inspection addendum. And by checking that box on the sale agreement, it shows that you are using that addendum as part of the sale agreement. And with that addendum, you can present it to the buyer, show them all of the lists of the entire list of inspections that are available, and then point out to them what's usual and customary in our market. A general inspection, a radon test, and a sewer scope are kind of the three that are very that are typical and usual in our market. Certainly in Portland, where radon is not zero. I don't know how it is further south, but up here we got radon. So that's kind of that's a pretty standard test.
Do you know where I would okay, I'm in Drain, you know what I mean? Like that wasn't anything that was a thing in either one of the homes that I've owned in this area.
Radon?
Yeah, so that's geological, right? If I remember correctly.
Correct. It is geological. A lot of it in Portland Metro has to do with sediment and rock distribution from the Columbia River, and the way sediment and rock has set up in Portland City, a lot of which was underwater during the Missoula floods eons ago, has resulted in our geography producing potentially producing pockets of radon. So I don't know about your jurisdiction. Up here, it's a thing. The dog agrees.
So I actually took a ramjack class this morning.
You did a what?
I did a ramjack class in Roseburg this morning.
Oh, ramjack. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So, of course that leads us to talking about soil, right?
Yeah.
So I was told, because I was like, oh, well, like the guy in ramjack said, if there's a lot of oak trees, most of the time you're going to see a lot of clay. Well, the property that I owned has dozens of oak trees.
Okay.
That said, my house sits on river bedrock. I've been under my house. But they said I could look at Douglas County soil map. Is that something that they have like for Lane County that you could check for the radon like exposure there, or wherever you're located, Portland area?
Yeah, I know. Well, yeah. I know that counties have maps for things like that. Specifically, whether I'm sure Lane County does.
I didn't mean. I just meant where you're at. Like if you were up in Portland area and you were to pull up, what is that? I don't even know what county. There's like 3 of them up there.
Multnomah would be with most of Portland City is in Multnomah County.
Sure. So you pull up there. You pull up Multnomah County soil map. Is that something that would probably be listed there? Would be the radon stuff? Like I'm just kind of looking for a place to look for that in my area.
I don't know the answer to your question on that. those maps are useful for other things, like whether you're in a floodplain or not.
Yeah.
And you, Miss Farm and Ranch, you need to learn about that, the difference between a floodway, a flood zone, and a floodplain. Okay, make sure you're well versed on those.
Oh, I did insurance, so I just
So you know, okay,
floodplain
yeah.
yesterday because
Yeah.
I was looking at a house in an area that I know floods.
Yeah. Our maps, certainly in Multnomah and Washington counties, and probably Clackamas as well, indicate potential slide activity, you know, like in terms of what would happen with a slide and the risk factors of a slide. As you know, Portland, the west side of Portland is very hilly and is prone to slides there. Those maps have that, whereas the east side of Portland is more flood prone, you know, in terms of down there by the river. So those maps are helpful for that. The radon, it's kind of catch as catch can. I know that there are parts of Portland that are notorious for having high radon. But irrespective of that, I would test no matter where you are, at least up here. But your inspector may have may know more, like, oh, you know, just the incident of radon down here super low. You know, if you want to test it, you can, but it's not critical, you know, or like that. That cannot be said for Portland Metro for radon. Now, you know, if you're in the West Hills of Portland, your chance of flooding are nil, you know, so you're not gonna spend a lot of time with that, you know, so it depends on where you are. Yeah. What else? Yep, again, talk to the inspectors in the area, they will know. That is true. That is true. Update contacts, follow up. I mean, I guess, I don't know how basic we want to get on this kind of, I think we're having a really good deep dive on kind of points that you can negotiate and talk through with your client. In terms of updating your contacts, an agent's portfolio value, I mean, a lot of that is in your database in terms of how many contacts are in your database and whether you're leveraging your database in terms of farming it or having it set up in a way that's useful and productive. I don't know about EXP, Jesse, but Keller Williams has a platform called Command that I don't know what your guys' level of exposure to Command is yet, but Command is a CRM that handles everything from your database to what are called smart plans that send out messages or emails automatically. It does all of that. It does compliance. It does document storage. It does all these great things.
Yeah, we use what's called KV Core.
KV Core, okay, which sounds like a similar type of thing that
Yeah, and it has our website and all that, and it
Okay.
can monitor. Yeah.
Also, your connection's a lot better. Whatever you're doing, don't move. It's really good now. I can hear everything you said. So that's good. So yeah, I mean, again, my comment on this is that like I pulled all of my contacts. There's a way to pull them all out of your phone and put them into Command. And there may be a way with your platform too. And all of a sudden I have 5,000 contacts in Command. It's nuts. And I've got to go through them and work on removing duplicates and weeding out agents. You know, I'm obviously not going to farm them because they're agents already, you know, and all of that. But there are many, how do I say this? I don't know if in Ignite, but there are many avenues and classes and workshops on strengthening your database and getting the maximum utilization out of your database. One of our coaches here, Jen Seidelman, she runs a whole thing on just cleaning your database up. And it's kind of like study hall, like you as a group, spend an hour, work an hour on your database, clean it up, and get it to a point where it has utility. And I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but it's like, if you have 200 contacts, you know, they say you can get whatever it is, 10 deals, 10 transactions out of 200 contacts, you do the math, you know, like whatever it takes, whatever those numbers are. We have a formula for that. So the more contacts you have and the better that your database is set up, the more leads you will get. Cassie, going back to what you were saying earlier about you're not afraid to do the calling, you just need to know who or what to call. Sounds like you need to work on, sounds like you don't need much work on your scripting and calling, you need work on your database. So you pull your database, most people it's the other way. So that's kind of a beautiful problem to have. You just have to sit down and do work on your database and get that in a condition that that will give it utility, you know. And again, I'm sure EXP has something similar where, you know, you can figure out how often you touch them. Do you do them 8 times a year? Do you do them a mailer once a quarter and a follow-up phone call once every 6 months or something? You know, there are plans for all of that, for how to manage best manage your database. And you can have different clients on different plans. You're hot, you're warm, you're colds, you know, you can have them on different things, but that's kind of my chat, you know, my comments on updating contacts, if that's what this slide says, which to me is different than negotiation, but there it is. Celebrate successes. Well, I agree with that. And then we're back to this. This should look familiar. Number of conversations, number of contacts added, number of handwritten notes, social media engagement, enrichments, appointments, agreements, and closings. Again, I don't mean to point you out, Cassie, again, but you know, focus on the second one. Number of contacts added, you know, how many are you gonna do? Do 3 a day. I don't know, do 4 a day, you know, or 10 a week or something, you know, like figure out a system for how am I going to build my database.
And that's how I'm doing now. Like, I've been brainstorming. I'm door knocking. That's a thing. I know a lot of agents at least do that a couple times.
Okay.
That's part of how I'm doing it. But I was just talking to one of the agents that have been at it for 8 years out of the Roseburg office this morning. And she's like, girl, just bake some brownies and make sure that because I volunteer at the school as much as I can, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
Leverage that.
Yeah, bake brownies and they go into the kitchen, you know, the teacher's lounge, and you know, then they're just like, now they know you from volunteering and that you can make
Absolutely.
a good brownie, and
Yeah.
then they want to be more than just, oh, she volunteers at the school. So it's little, like, she tells me that and I'm just like mind blown.
Yeah, but it's true. I mean,
Yeah.
anything like that, you just, anything like that. Yeah, I know for me, again, and I'm not trying to push any kind of religious agenda, but I will tell you that the parish secretary of my cathedral has my number in her phone, and anytime somebody's looking for an agent, I get a referral. So for what it's worth, again, I'm just any kind of connection, whether it's school, whether it's, you know, I mean, my dentist is even asking me a lot of questions about property, you know, so I'm like, hey, you know, and anyone else who wants to know, let me know. And then I'll give you a little Keller Williams secret sauce just for fun, even though you're the magic a critical number is you need to have 200 contacts, at least 200 good solid contacts in your database. You've got to have at least 200. So kind of make that as your initial goal if you want traction.
Key is that they're solid. So I have
They're
like,
solid. They've got to be
two-
scrubbed, cleaned up,
Yeah.
scrubbed. You need to have actually the number's 201.
yeah, I have
I just sold us out.
Yeah, I have over 260. The problem
Okay.
is some of them are off of these foreclosure lists that I work because I was
Okay.
told I need to put those in there, but there's no phone number. Does that make sense? So I
Yeah.
would say those are not solid. I have a name, a mailing address, and possibly a physical, because some of them are rentals and it tells me if it's their primary address or a rental. So I wouldn't count those specific ones as an example as solid. I don't think if you have an actual form that you can have a conversation with them in,
Yeah.
phone number, email, those are not solid. Those are kind of like, okay, they're extras.
They're extras, you know, we do have tools and there are tools available to you that Keller Williams offers through a third party. That is a powerful database where you can plug in a name and possibly get a phone number. Okay, so we have that. And it's called Forewarn. I mean, EXP you may have that as well, but usually that's used for a client that you're engaged with.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that they're, you know, not a serial killer, but you can also, if you're missing a phone number, you can certainly plug them in and get a number. I mean,
Yeah, I
and
didn't know
fill
that.
in
I've
those-
got
those-
my forewarn all set up. I didn't know that. I must have missed that in the class I took.
Yeah, as long as you forewarned that they're very strict. They don't want you to abuse it. Don't start looking up celebrities. Don't start doing weird stalker things. You know, it's a business tool. And what you find out, what you know from that tool is to be kind of proprietary. You know, you're not supposed to like blabbermouth about the 3 DUIs that so-and-so has, you know, but because it's all there. But you know, in terms of filling in a phone number, I don't see that as an egregious misuse of that tool. As long as you've cross-referenced the do not call list to make sure that they're not on that list, that could help. You know, you change some of your 260, you know, might give you a little bit more information on there. And then you could mark that as an added contact. I mean, that would count as a, you know, then you've shored that up. I would count that.
Yeah, I didn't know that Forewarn did that. Thank you so much. That's gonna be on my to-do now.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if, you know, again, you're not using it, you're not abusing it, you're using it as an informational tool. And these are potential clients, so I mean, I think, you know, you're okay. I just have to throw that in, you know, as a caveat, just, you know, kind of keep it like that. And that would make that, I mean, that's for everybody, you know. If I don't know if Jesse, if you have Forewarn or not, it's a really useful, you do. Yeah, it's useful. Use Command and Connect to get help. We've talked about Command as our platform in terms of what it can do. Connect I go into less often, but Connect has certainly our library of things that can help you as an agent are through KW Connect, are available there. Whereas Command is definitely the, you know, the utility, the platform that we use, but we have Command and KW Connect to help you with your business. Prepare for the next session, session 19, get to the close. I don't know who's teaching that. I could teach that one too. I'm kind of more the, you know, negotiating and technical guy in terms of once you're in a contract and keeping you out of trouble. That's more my strong suit in terms of what I do rather than like lead generation. I mean, we've talked about lead gen today and Command, but my wheelhouse is more making sure trying to keep transactions moving and not having them terminate, and making sure that negotiations are going smoothly and resolving any disputes. That's kind of my wheelhouse. And any of you are welcome. I guess Jesse can't, but anyone affiliated with KW, you can reach out to me anytime and I can give you advice. But that's the role of a managing broker. I mean,
Just on the lead gen, I mean, obviously there's rules and regulations and laws, but just got to be a mover and shaker in general. Got to be doing something.
You've got to be doing, you've got to be doing something. I'm just saying that's not my strong, that's
Yeah.
like in terms of teaching that, there are people who are way better at teaching lead gen than I am. Should it be an integral part of your business profile? Yes. Should you calendar it? We haven't even talked about time blocking on a calendar. I'm a huge believer in that. Yes. You know, the Keller model again, you know, is you lead gen between 9 and 11. I have one agent who's like, bullshit.
Yeah.
He lead gens between 4 and 6. He catches people on the way home. But he's blocked that time. That's his lead gen time is between 4 and 6 when he can grab people on their way home before they get home. I'm like, I love it. So he doesn't prescribe to it literally. He just says, okay, there's a 2-hour block in there where his job is to make calls or connect with people, you know.
And I think a lot of it for that is going to depend on your target market. So for me,
Absolutely.
like as an example,
Yeah.
I personally would not be calling the type of people that right now I'm targeting everybody, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But my goal to be rural farm and ranch would not to be call somebody between 9 and 11 because that's when us country folk are busiest.
Yeah, you're working, you're out there.
Yeah, we're minning fences and we're mucking stalls and
Yep.
horseshoe or whatever it is. I would
Yep.
absolutely not call them. I would say
Yeah.
I would be calling those people. I like the 4 to 6 because by then they've had dinner and they're just kind of relaxing a little bit, or they're preparing dinner at that time.
Yeah,
So-
absolutely. You can, whatever works for you, whatever's comfortable for you. The model just says it's good to block some kind of time for that part of your business. But I love Stephen that he said, I do mine happy hour. I'm a happy hour lead gener. I'm like, go for it. I love it. And he's in production, you know, but that's his time. So whatever works, you know, whatever it is.
So Stephanie, how long have you been doing real estate?
I just hit my 1-year mark,
Oh,
but I'm still working part-time. So I work
Oh.
2.5 days a week.
yeah, so
somewhere
you're still
else.
busy.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Where are
Yeah.
you, Stephanie? I don't know where you are.
in Medford.
You're Medford. Okay. Okay. And where are you, Jesse?
I work in Eugene, like from Albany to Eugene, and then I
Okay.
also work Central Oregon. So I do
Awesome.
both.
Okay.
Mhm.
Awesome. Okay.
I've been doing this for almost 5 years.
Awesome. Are you a principal broker?
No,
Not yet. Okay.
maybe someday, but
Maybe someday. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I have to tell you guys, I don't know if I can get my computer. Those boxes right over here,
Yeah.
those are my signs. They just came in today while I was getting ready for this class. So I have to brag. I'm sorry. In those
Congratulations.
includes some car magnets. My son and my adopted kid, it's just my son's friend, but I mother him. They race dirt track with cars. And so I bought some to go on their car. But also in the tiny town, parades are a big thing. And so we're gonna cruise in the parade. We have some older cars, and I'm just gonna slap those magnets on, and we're gonna toss some candy. Just little things like that is kind of the route I'm gonna go.
I love it.
And eventually I'd like to have a flag made because we have a sand rail that we take over to the coast, and I can just be flying the flag while we're out running around. So little things like that is kind of where I'm going with it. But I just had to brag about the signs because I haven't even opened them yet.
Well, that's exciting.
Yeah. So I'm just super stoked for that. And I ordered my daughter, my 11-year-old. Sorry if you have an 11-year-old, but mine's the cutest out there. She goes door knocking with me every time I go. And I ordered her a matching name thing. By D. I can't even think, name tag that says her first and last name and then future real estate broker. Because it's a gimmick. I haven't got a single door smacked in my face. Nobody's rude. They're always smiling, even if it's because my daughter's cute, even though I'm annoying them, I'll take it.
Absolutely.
When we've gone back for the second or third, because I go about a month and then try to go back and see the people. People are like, oh yeah, I remember you guys. Your daughter was wearing whatever last time. You know what I mean? Like my daughter was telling me she wanted a shirt like your daughter's or whatever. So little things like that. That's what I'm finding works for me. But I'm excited. Anyways, I want to
Well,
open.
I just will say in closing, I hope this session was helpful. I hope that
Very.
we stayed mostly on script, but we also went off script when I think we had some valuable conversation. What I love about real estate, you can do this whether you're in the city, whether you're in the suburbs, whether you're rural, no matter where you are, you can do it. And I love that we can share kind of some commonalities on this. And each situation may have different style, but it's still essentially the same. So it's always fun to hear, like when you're talking about, things operate, how they operate where you are versus where I am. It's so interesting to see what's different, but what is very much the same.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really, really, I love that because I get calls from all over the state, in my role, I get calls from Medford or Klamath. I have a gal in Klamath who I speak to regularly, and it's like, I'm nowhere near Klamath geographically, but I love hearing what she's got to say or what the issue is and helping her talk through it. So it's really cool. I love that.
So Jesse, I already emailed while we were talking my inspector, so hopefully I'll hear back from him, but thank you. That was fantastic. He's out of Roseburg, so about 35 miles south of me, but he goes everywhere. So that's big because I'm into that kind of stuff. So I want to know and be prepared. So I appreciate that one. Well, thank you. I think this was a fun class, personally.
Was this fun? I hope so. I don't know. I'm not in the regular rotation. They just pull me in when they need me, and I love doing it, but I don't do them that often. So I don't know where you guys have been with this. I try to make it fun. I try to bring in real life stuff in terms of what I see. I think it's good to have conversations, and thank you, Jesse, for bringing in things, especially about the inspector and the appraisal in terms of what that helps. That's helpful to have that voice. And these are real life things that come in, and like I'm in a mediation right now. It has to do with a flood zone and a floodplain and buildability, and I mean that stuff's real.
Mm-hmm.
I have an agent, I won't say which market center, who said, raise your house 6 inches and enjoy the country property of your dreams. Okay. And it turns out that the lot's really not buildable. So
yeah, flood is a pain. But use your flood maps. Like
yeah.
I got a client that I'm looking for a property for, and this was beautiful, but I know that section of Cresswell tends to flood. So, and this is on the far side from the river of the road.
Okay.
So I just pulled it up, and it specifically says it's not all properties have a flood zone, but this is one.
Sure.
It's not likely to flood. And
Right.
so when I emailed him the listing, I said, here is a screenshot of the flood mapping from FEMA, and that it's specifically listed as not likely to flood. It's not in that type of zone. I said,
Right.
that stated, after so long in insurance, which I'm in the middle of renewing my insurance license because I love insurance so much that I'm going to continue to talk about it. So I want to be legal.
Oh yeah, you've got to be licensed if you're going to talk about it.
Yes, in detail. So I told him, I said, listen, if this is the property for you, I would still suggest a flood policy. And I make no money off of them going and getting a flood policy.
Right.
But because it is so close to an area that literally floods every year, I was like, I would have a flood policy if this was my house. So use those flood maps. It's simple. You can't mess it up. You can literally Google FEMA flood maps, and there it is. So if you need help, just ask me. It's It's what I did for 10 years.
It's good to know you're now the go-to. I love it. I love it.
Well, I appreciate it. This class was very enlightening, and I think the conversation was great. A lot of times, you just kind of hear people read the notebook and, no one talks and stuff. So this was very, very good. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Exactly. Exactly.
Good. And
I
I,
agree.
and I get that, but it's been proven that just lecture, you're going to retain about, what is it, 10%?
Yeah.
And if we're at least interaction and have some talk back and forth, you just might retain a little more. So that's where I think that it's important that we talk through some of this stuff. And that I'm not afraid. Okay, I know we're being recorded. I'm not afraid to go off script a little bit if I think that there's value in the direction that we're going. So hopefully they'll let me teach another one. My day, I'm always super busy just because of what I do, but I really enjoy engaging with this, and you guys are almost through the program. Yay.
Thank you so much.
Just teach the classes. This is your coffee break.
This is my thing, yeah. This is my thing. Nagam, I'll see you in the office. The rest of you, great spending the afternoon with you guys. And Jesse, thanks for dropping in. Are you doing the whole
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Are you doing all of Ignite or just specific ones, or?
I don't know. I got a text or an email the other day. I'm like, hey, do you want to join this class? I was like, sure, why not?
Are we recruiting you?
Probably. Everybody tries.
Yeah. Well, it's been lovely meeting you. So whatever,
too.
yeah, great to have you. All right, you guys, I hope I see you guys again.
All right, thank you.
So much.
Bye.
Thanks.